Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to my channel, Twitch Spirit. They call me Twitch. If you're new here, thank you very much for stopping by. I do appreciate that. If you don't know why they call me Twitch, I just so happen to have Tourette's syndrome. And, well, I've wanted to do a segment like this for a very long time. So I've called this segment Own Your Truth. This, again, is my channel, Twitch Spirit. Go ahead, hit that subscribe, hit that like. Please watch it all the way through. And if you're a returning viewer, well, thank you very much for coming back. I do appreciate that. So here I got my first guest. It's someone I've been talking to for quite a while. I let him know that I wanted to do this segment, and I got nothing but encouragement, and I offered him to be my first guest here, which was amazing. And he's definitely one of the strongest individuals that I know. So let's go ahead and welcome him to the segment. And for the audience, just let us know your name and a little bit about yourself.
Well, online I go by Tourettes Cop, and just as the name implies, I'm a police officer in Minnesota, and I have Tourette syndrome.
Right on, right on. And I guess that's kind of what brought us together too. When I saw online that your name was Tourette Cop, I was like, dude, that's awesome. Guy that's out there, doing his thing, being strong, and then putting out awareness at the same time. I had to reach out. So,
I appreciate it.
So in regards to Tourette, because a lot of people don't know that there's a lot of comorbids that come with it. They think that sometimes it's just cursing. The media doesn't sensationalize that, which is unfortunate. But when it comes to it, there's a lot of other things that are involved with it. What do you feel you struggle with the most in regards to Tourette's?
Yeah. So besides Tourette's, which is the tics that I have, the comorbidities that I struggle with the most have been ADHD and anxiety.
And how old were you when you were diagnosed with Tourette syndrome?
So that's a fun story. I've actually never been diagnosed. Tourette syndrome and tic disorders have been quite prominent in my dad's side of the family. Like my dad has a tic disorder. I have a lot of uncles and cousins that have Tourette syndrome and tic disorders. So it was a known disorder for my family. So when I started ticking, they didn't freak out. They knew exactly what it was, and it was no big issue for them. So, because they knew what it was, they didn't see a need for me to get diagnosed or go see a doctor, because when I was younger, it never really interfered with my schooling or with my life at all. So they just never saw a need for it. So never been diagnosed up until probably recently now. A few years ago, I went and saw a neurologist, and I think to be diagnosed with Tourette syndrome, I just think you need one vocal tic and 2 motor tics, I think, for a year. Is that what it is? I can't remember what it is anymore.
Something like that. Definitely, they have to see that it's there for longer than, the small period of time. So,
right. And yeah, I mean, since I've seen the neurologist, I've obviously been continuing to tic for that long. So probably diagnosed now. Haven't looked into it. Not really an issue for me. I don't need that plaque or that card or whatever to say that I've been diagnosed with Tourette syndrome to know that I have Tourette syndrome.
Right.
It doesn't impact my life one way or another to have that diagnosis.
Right. That's awesome, though. That's really cool. That's something that I think is part of what I like to call owning your truth. That's awesome.
Right.
So you said your family already knew about it. So the reaction, I guess, you would say wasn't really out of the ordinary. They really didn't seem overly concerned. So it did, because my next question was how they reacted, and then how did it impact them? Which looks like in your case, it didn't really impact them very much because they were already used to other family members, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So when I started, exhibiting symptoms or, tics, they, like I said, they knew what it was. They weren't overly concerned with it. And, for the most part, they pretty much just said, hey, you got Tourette syndrome. And at the time I was, I was probably 6 or 7 when I started ticking. I really don't remember, but at that age, I had no idea what Tourette syndrome was. They could say it causes you to do that. Okay.
Right.
It really never clicked with me. And even like all through my childhood, all through high school and all that stuff, it was never made to be a big deal in my family, to the point of I literally did not know what Tourette syndrome was, even after graduating high school.
Oh, wow.
I mean, we paid such little attention to it. It didn't impact my life so severely that we talked about it often. A lot of times it would be, my dad would just, see me ticking or something, and he would just like, hey, take your mind off of it, think of something else, or go do something else to take your mind off of your tick. And because for him, he was able to overcome a lot of his ticks by, taking his mind off it and doing something else. So because he could do that, he thought that I could do that.
Right.
And that just wasn't the issue. There's nothing I could do even at a young age that could make me take my mind off of my ticks and make me stop ticking. So other than, the little bit of things like that, it really never impacted any part of growing up or anything in regards to, changing family dynamics or anything like that.
Right on. That's awesome that you had that support, though. That's super important. I feel like a lot of the time, family members, I wouldn't say that they're scared, but they do struggle with being supportive because it's something
Right.
that's just new to them that they don't know about. So for them to fully understand it, they really have to go into, what it is and what comes with it, and then from there kind of accept it and then be supportive, which is a pretty long cycle. It's nothing short. It can take a while for someone to come around. So,
Right. Yep.
So you said during, like, in school, it wasn't too big of an issue. Would you say that you were bullied by any kids at school? And if so, like, how'd you handle that situation?
So my ticks were not as severe as they are now when I was a kid. And I was a fairly shy, quiet kid, to the point where like I didn't want to interact with many people other than like my core group of friends. And I think that shyness and just being a timid child helped me suppress my ticks while I was at school. My ticks were noticed at school, but it was never to the point where a lot of people were pointing them out. A few people would point them out every once in a while because I was doing something that wasn't, normal.
Right.
And that's what hit me the most, even at a young age, is I remember I was like 8 or 9 years old, and we were in the library at the school, and one of my classmates looked at me and she's like, "Why do you blink so much?" That was kind of, that was one of the first memories that I had of someone noticing one of my ticks. Because I didn't know I was blinking more than what other people would blink. It's just that's
Right.
something that never registered to me. So that was one of the first times that kind of made me think that, am I doing things that aren't considered normal? Then at that point I'm sitting here like watching the other kids and seeing how often they blink, and then trying to like copy that, just like so I don't seem weird, so I fit in and all that stuff. And I think that was one of the biggest struggles, just growing up and even all through my childhood is most of it was an internal struggle. I never let people know what I was dealing with, just because I thought what I was dealing with is what everyone else dealt with. So I never brought it up. I mean, I remember times in high school, we'd be sitting in class during a lecture, and I'd be sitting in my seat, not even remotely paying attention, because I was doing everything in my power not to scream out loud.
Right.
And I thought that's something that everybody went through, So I never brought it up. I never thought it was out of the ordinary. It's just something that I dealt with. And, and I still remember times where I'm like, how loud can I scream before anybody notices it? So I'm sitting here trying to do like these very muted, just so I can get that feeling in my throat, just to kind of relieve that tick.
Right.
But in regards to bullying, I was bullied a little bit, I guess, growing up. But again, being so quiet and shy, I never handled it. I pretty much just, whoever was saying or doing whatever, I just accepted it and just always hoped that the situation stopped. I never was able to really stand up for myself because I didn't know how at that point. And again, I didn't want any more attention on me than
Right.
needed. So I'd always just hope that, okay, they already said it, they're done with it. Hopefully now it's done, so then I can go back to being ignored. So not the most appropriate and best way to handle it, but that's
Right.
the best way I could handle it with what I had, for
Right.
myself.
The coping skills at the time you had and know.
Yes, thank you. Yep.
Just to ignore it. Yeah, I know. Was there any other kids at school that had Tourette's, or were you the only kid at school with Tourette's?
So you and I both grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, and back then Tourette's syndrome wasn't heard of. We didn't have the internet and all these resources literally at our fingertips to let us know, let us know all this information. So, like I said, I was told I had Tourette's syndrome. I had tics, but I didn't understand what Tourette's syndrome was, and I didn't understand half the things I did were tics. So I mean, just that knowledge in general was just wasn't out there. It wasn't prevalent. It wasn't known to a lot of kids. So, I never noticed anybody with tics, and again, it was just a disorder that was never talked about. Other than in my family, I had never heard anyone else use the term Tourette's syndrome.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess growing up, I didn't really, not until high school, probably like freshman, sophomore year. There was one other kid who did, but again, like mine were more severe than his, so the spotlight was just always on me. He kind of flew under the radar a little bit just because this is where it's like the random like head nod with his, he'd close eyes, maybe look out the corner a little bit. Like people didn't think that was that bad. Then when mine were more severe when I was a child. So even walking sometimes would be kind of a chore if you could say, I guess. You have to kind of think of where you're going to go and how quick you can get there, so you're not, taking. So yeah, we only had the one other kid, which is crazy because when we moved to Arizona, it's a really small town. So it's just insane that there was another kid that had it as well. To me, that was kind of mind blown a little bit. So
and then that's what's crazy is they say Tourette's syndrome is it's a fairly common rare disorder, I guess is the best way I can put it. A lot of people have heard about it. You do hear a lot of people about having it, but like when it comes down to the individual person, like half the time you're the only one in your school, in your community, or whatever that has it. So, like I can understand and feel, what a lot of people say. It's a really lonely disorder.
Right. Yeah, I think
because go ahead.
I only met like one other person in my lifetime, which happened to be someone that I worked with a few years ago. The only other person I've ever met in real life, like in my day-to-day life that actually had Tourette's. I was like, oh wow, like I wasn't the only person at work.
Right. Yeah.
So, as an adult, have you been bullied? I know sometimes adults can bully other adults. You do see that sometimes.
Like yes and no, I guess. Just with my job in law enforcement, people are going to be mean to me. I understand that. I've come to terms with that, and Tourette's syndrome has just given them more fuel to use in order to try to make me feel bad.
Right.
And it doesn't bother me. Like even, personal life and professional life, I've gotten used to it, I guess you could say. And I just don't let it bother me, because for the most part, I don't care what a complete stranger has to say about me. Like, it does not bother me at all, because they don't know my life. They don't know what I lived through, just like I don't know their life and what they lived through. So I never see a point to engage with those kinds of people, because they're doing it just either out of ignorance or just to be hurtful. And I just never see a reason to
address it.
Yeah, right. Thank
you. I mean, that's a good way to look at it. And I mean, it just goes back to like one of the quotes that I constantly have in my head is like, someone else's opinion about you is none of your business. So, I mean, they can think you're the worst person in the world. Well, all right, cool. That's fine. You can think that. That's okay. It shouldn't bug me, because at the end of the day, I don't get, they're not sitting next to me at home, so, that's a good way to look at it. That's for sure. So it looks like through adulthood, it hasn't affected you as much as some other people have been affected, because we all handle it different. Some people do go into adulthood and it does affect them. It seems like you were very comfortable in your own skin and in who you are, and it's just not that affects you in adulthood. Is that safe to say?
Yeah. So for me, like my Tourette syndrome journey, I guess you could call it, has been kind of a strange one. So I at 18, graduated high school. I still had my tics, but again, they were never as severe as what they are now. And I unfortunately made a poor life choice at that time, and I started smoking cigarettes. So unknown to me is nicotine, after a while, actually started suppressing my tics, and suppressing my tics to the point where I was rarely ticking. Like I still had my tics, but they were so far and in between, and a lot of them were, just the ones that people never saw. So it became a non-issue, So then again, at that point, it just continued to prolong my ignorance of what Tourette syndrome is. Because again, even at the time where you're out in college and you're learning more things, I still didn't learn about Tourette syndrome, because it wasn't something that was ever on my mind, and it wasn't something that was really, really prevalent in me. So a few years ago, I decided to start getting healthy, and I was going to quit smoking, and I did just that. So I used the nicotine gum to help me curb my cravings and get to not smoking anymore. And I was doing that and doing really well, and it got to the point where I was just chewing one piece of that gum a day. So I was kind of just thinking to myself, I'm like, am I chewing this because it's helping, or am I chewing this just for the sake of chewing gum, So I stopped it altogether, and I was doing great. And I think it was like 3 days after that last piece of gum, my motor tics came back, and they came back hard, and I had new motor tics. Because I have my shoulder tic came back, my shoulder shrugging, neck tic, my arm tic where I was stretching my arms. That one was going so much and with such force that I was having to ice my elbows for like a couple days, just because of the pain I was putting them through. And it didn't let up. I mean, it was literally, it's like at that point, like I woke up that day and motor tics, and like they didn't stop, and I was concerned because like at that point I was like, what is going on? Like this hasn't happened in such a long time and with such ferocity that like, I was concerned for a little bit. But then, I'm just like, whatever, maybe it's just, it is what it is pretty much what I chalked it up to. But then like 2 or 3 weeks later, vocal tics started coming back. And my first vocal tic was a really loud cough. And kind of my sniffing tic has evolved over the years. I mean, it's sounded different and acted different, and it's just, kind of now what it is today. But I had a sniffing tic at that point as well. And, and at that point, like when both my vocal and motor tics came back, I was concerned. So I went to my doctor and got a referral to a neurologist. And actually, right before my first appointment to the neurologist, I was on the phone with my mom, and she just kind of offhanded asked, I was like, do you think your tics coming back has to do anything with you quitting smoking? At that point, it was just like little light bulb went off on my head, and I was like, you know what? Probably just because of just the timeline and how everything just kind of fell into place. So at the neurologist, even the doctor said, nicotine affects everybody differently, just like Tourette syndrome affects everybody differently. Nicotine for me suppressed my tics for all those years, and then when I finally got out of my system, it just opened the floodgates and allowed all my tics to come back. So, I had to learn. Again, at a late age, again, what Tourette syndrome was. And then I started actually looking into it. And then I had to come to terms that, again, at a late age, I'm going to start ticking again. And, it's just, my body had to get used to it. All my friends and family, that was, a big thing. It's just like, oh, hey, just let you know, I'm now going to be making noises and moving around extra. So that was a big mental hurdle for me to get over, was just so worried and just overthinking of how accepting other people are going to be of my tics. And I remember even, when they first came back, I tried to stay away from all the other deputies and officers in my area, just because I wasn't ready to tell them and just to, what are they going to think? Are they, how accepting are they going to be of it?
Right.
Well, after, a few weeks of just kind of shutting myself away while at work, I finally went to coffee with them and just let them know, it's like, hey, new me, I have tics and all that stuff. And, and that extra thinking and worrying and anxiety was completely useless. Everybody was so, accepting and it was just an overwhelmingly positive, encounter. And everybody had this awesome questions and and things like that. So, that really helped too, and it just gets to the point, it's just like, I can't help this. This is part
Right.
of me. It's not all of me. It's part of me.
Right.
So I think, it's just, so I had to accept it. I didn't want to, feel sorry for myself because of something that I literally can't control.
Right.
So I owned them. I owned my tics, and then just continued to move on with life. And I just think with that confidence has really helped with that.
Right on. That's awesome. It's funny you mentioned how nicotine affects it. Although mine didn't minimize all the way, smoking did actually, in fact, help it. So when I went off the cigarettes and went off the vape, I had a really bad day at work that I actually ended up just leaving because I couldn't sit there and I couldn't sit still and I couldn't keep quiet. So I actually just got up and I was like, I'm going to go home for the day. I got to get out of here. My brain is just mush. It's scrambled and I can't sit still and I can't stay quiet. So I'm just going to go because sitting here is just overwhelming. And I'm just thinking of who can hear this and it's messing with me. So I'm going to go.
Right.
So I got, so I clocked out, went home and I said, I'm just going to shut out the world for today and just kind of reset. And I think it's because I haven't smoked in the last 48 hours is what it was. I had completely went off of vaping and everything for at least minimum was 48 hours that day. And then
right.
That's when I was like, wow, that's crazy you say that though, because that's really true. But yeah, and like how you said, the deputies didn't care. It's funny how we all spend so much time thinking and that worrying and your anxiety, and which just affects your tics even more. But you do find some cool
Right.
people out there who just generally just don't care. Like you're sitting next
Right.
to them ticking, and they're just carrying on a conversation with you, like you're not even doing that. Like, you know,
Yep.
you find friends like that, and you're just like, oh man, I got lucky. I found people that generally just don't care. They just going about the conversation or hanging out with you as if nothing's, you know, happening. And, you know, it kind of gives you that peace of mind where you could say, at least for that duration I'm hanging out with them, they make me feel like I'm of able mind and body. And that's kind of
Boy,
cool.
exactly. You know, and it's and it's gotten pretty much that way at work now too. You know, all the deputies and officers that I work with are, you know, so used to my extra noises and movements that, you know, it's just nobody brings it up, which is awesome, because it always seems like when I talk about Tourette syndrome or talk about my tics, it just automatically makes me tick more.
Right.
You know, so at work, you know, we can be talking about whatever we have, you know, talking about work, or, you know, just talking about, you know, our weekend or whatever. Nobody brings it up. They understand that it's just a part of who I am, and it is what it is. You know, and I absolutely love that. You know, they don't point it out, they don't, you know, bring it up at all unless they legitimately like have a question about it. And, you know, and again, at that point, you know, they're wanting to learn more about the disorder. So I'm absolutely not faulting for that. And I'm always happy to answer, you know, any questions that they have about Tourette syndrome.
Yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, I've always done the same too. If somebody approaches me and they're respectful about it, I don't mind. I've had people ask me like, "Hey, I don't know how to ask you." I'm just like, "I know what you want to ask. Just ask it. It's cool. As long as you're respectful about it, I really don't care. At the end of the day, I'm teaching you
Right.
something, and that's good, you know,
Yep,
because then you can go on
exactly.
and say it to somebody else. So, you know, definitely that's cool. Um, has there ever been like a time that you at work, maybe not as a police officer, but somewhere else, where it did it somehow maybe affect your job, or somebody may have said something?
So Tourette syndrome doesn't affect my job whatsoever. You know, luckily for me, a lot of people with Tourette syndrome, when you become hyper focused on something, your tics kind of like stop, or they're suppressed for that time. And, you know, for me, you know, at work, and, you know, anytime my weapon is out, or anytime any weapon is out,
Right.
my tics are gone, just because of the amount of intense focus that you need,
Right.
dealing with whatever you have, and with what weapon you have out. You know, so like hunting, training, and on the job, I've noticed, you know, anytime I have a weapon out, my tics are gone. You know, my vocal one still kind of continues to stick around, whatever, but that doesn't affect my ability to use any of my weapons. You know, and that goes for a lot of you know, calls that I go to too. You know, if I have to go, you know, code 3, you know, lights and sirens to a call, again, ticks go down, because again, I'm focused on, you know, so many other things that
Right.
it just, my ticks take the back seat to that. You know, the biggest issue, I guess I wouldn't even call it an issue. The biggest thing about having Tourette syndrome and being a police officer is just telling people that I have Tourette syndrome. That's the biggest thing that I deal with. You know, I mean, I meet a lot of people just every day with my job. And, you know, an officer walking into their house, you know, making noises and things like that, you know, people just ask, you know, I mean, everything from, you know, like, hey, what's up with you? What's wrong with you? Are you okay? Do you need water? Do you have the hiccups? I mean, just so many, just random questions that, you know, I've just gotten used to it.
Right.
And I just tell people, it's like, yep, well, first of all, that's me making the noises. And secondly, like, I have Tourette syndrome. You know, it causes me to make noises and move around some. This is my normal. It's okay. Don't need an ambulance.
That's awesome. And if I had $1 for every time I got, do you have the hiccups, or do you have
Right.
allergies? Oh man, dude, I'd be rich at this
Yes.
point.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Or, do you need water?
Right.
Well, yes, but that's also not the reason why I'm doing this.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I get that all the time too. Like, yeah, you got hiccups? Do you need water? Like, do you have allergies? Or you get a bless you in the store? And I'm like,
Right.
I didn't sneeze, but thank you
Yeah.
for your concern.
Yeah. And and when I tell people that I have Tourette syndrome, most people know what Tourette syndrome is. Or a lot of people, or some people, like, what's that? So I explain it to them real quickly. Or the brain is like, oh, so you can swear and, do stuff like that. And I'm just like, no, so I try to explain very quickly what, like coprolalia is and Tourette syndrome. But again, I'm also there for my job,
Right.
So like if we have time, after, whatever I'm there for is handled, then I can go back and talk to them and then, just, try to answer their questions and educate them a little bit more on what Tourette syndrome is. So when I'm on the job, I don't allow Tourette syndrome to define who I am. Well, even off the job, I don't allow Tourette syndrome to define me. So when I go on calls and when I go on scene and everything, it's just it's business first. I mean, that's why I'm there.
Right.
But I also don't shy away from answering people about my tics or Tourette syndrome. I'm not embarrassed by it. I don't shy away from it. I just confidently answer, yep, this is what I got, this is how I deal with it, and then move on. And I think a lot of times, especially people that maybe necessarily aren't happy that I'm at their house or that I'm at wherever they are dealing with whatever situation,
right.
And they a lot of times they'll angrily ask me like, hey, what's up with you? Try to get at me. And I just, again, confidently, just nonchalantly, it's like, I got Tourette syndrome, man. This is my normal. And there have been a couple times, like I've had people like, completely like just immediately drop, their emotions and, and then it was like, oh man, I'm sorry. And I'm just like, no, you're good. Like you didn't know, you asked, I answered.
Right.
Like, it is what it is.
When anything happens, whether it's like, mostly if it's something bad that happens, I guess you could say, like if the day just didn't turn out the way I wanted, I have to go through my scenario a million different ways to see how the scenario could have came out better. And like that
Right.
just feels so much time for me because at the end of the night, I'm still awake and I'm still thinking of that said scenario. And I'm just like, why am I doing this to myself? It's like torturing yourself. I can't change the scenario at this point because it already happened. But for me, like in my mind, it's like, I'm still trying to change it. Like it's going to make something better. It's like, well, even if I did change it and I found an outcome, well, I can't play the outcome now because it's already happened. So like
Exactly.
for me, like that OCD really just gets the best of me a lot of the time. And just like, oh man, like why am I awake thinking of this? And you're like, all right, I'm just gonna go to bed right now. And I'm not gonna think about it. And lo and behold, 2 minutes later, I'm right back at it. I'm like, dude, you gotta stop.
Yep.
So like for me, yeah, like I let it get like the best of me later on in the day, but it's not even because I let it. It's more or less like the OCD inside me just. That's the focus of it. It's just, and
see,
it,
and that's funny because I'm the same way, but I always chalked it up to just anxiety and overthinking. Because I never let my anxiety or any of and my disorders affect my job. I just
right.
they don't, and I don't allow them. It's always after the fact. I was like, how did I handle that call? Could have I done it better? Oh, I should have done this. Oh, I should have done that. When in reality, talking to other officers, like, no, you did fine. You did
Right.
a good job. But I still never see it that way. It's like, oh, I can do better. I screwed up there. I screwed up here. And that just constantly repeats and replays in my mind for the longest time. Again, like that just like brings down your self-esteem a little bit, and
Right.
you're just constantly overthinking that. And again, like I always chalked it up just to my anxiety and overthinking. And that's, like I said, that's always kind of been an issue for me, or been something that I've always done, whether or not it was in, law enforcement or even just my personal life. It's just, I always just, certain situations I feel like I did wrong or did bad.
Right.
So then I just mentally kill myself with overthinking it to the point of exhaustion where, yeah, you're not sleeping and you're thinking about it for days. And,
Yeah, it's horrible, and it's like the things that people don't really know. They're just like, oh, well, OCD is just people being neat. No, it's actually not. There's a lot more involved to it than just something like
Right.
that. There's gonna be people that are straight up not even clean people, and they have OCD. There's documentaries out there you can watch on it, and it's just intense. But yeah, for me, that's what gets the best of me a lot of the time. Um, but so like you said, like even to where you had to like ice your arm. People don't understand that either. People don't know that you can't take enough to where it is hurting your body at times, and you having to
Right.
like ice your body and find different ways of to find some sort of relief. So even then, like, again, it's awesome that you opened up and said that as well. Are there tests that I would I, would, I wouldn't say difficult, because it seems like you got a fairly good handle on how to get things done, but are there tasks that maybe take a bit more effort to do due to having Tourette's?
Um, just a lot of everyday things that nobody even considers would be an issue, become issues at times. Like let's say I'm cooking something on the stove. I have to be ready and cognizant of my arm ticks, because I can't be, flipping eggs
Right.
or cooking a steak, and then all of a sudden, my arm tick goes crazy, and then the eggs are all over the wall or on the floor.
Right.
I mean, I know Dexter, my dog, would be absolutely happy with that, but I wouldn't, because I'd still be hungry. So again, I have a fairly good handle on a lot of my ticks, and my arm ticks, I do have the premonitory urges, so I do know when a tick is coming, and I can hold off, for a short while, just in case I need to, put something down or switch hands or do anything like that. But again, if I'm not paying attention, or if I'm extra tired, my eggs are on the ground. Same thing. Drinking, say a glass of water. If I'm, again, not being fully aware of my ticks and those premonitory urges, depending on how hard I tick, that water is going to be all over the ground and all over, whatever. Brushing my teeth. I have a coughing tick that I have to be aware of when I'm brushing my teeth. It's caught me off guard a couple times where it ends up happening, and all the toothpaste that's in my mouth is now all over the mirror or wherever, and it's just like I knew that was going to happen,
Right?
And it's just just didn't think fast enough to just hey, hold off, or hey, let's spit the toothpaste out first.
Right.
So it's little things like that nobody really knows or understands or acknowledges about people with Tourette syndrome. But again, for me, it's just things I've gotten used to because I have Tourette syndrome. So people are like, oh man, that's gotta suck, or it's how sad or whatever, and it's like
it's normal.
It's Tourette syndrome. It's yeah, it is what it is. This is my normal, and this is how I handle it. So I don't. It gives you some entertainment,
Right. Yeah. No, I don't like stirring things. Stirring things make me nervous. And like you said,
right.
You can feel it coming on, and you're just like, right, you got to stop for a minute. And I do this thing where I have to touch my nose and touch the table, but I have to be careful because I may do it too hard, and everyone's eating, and all of a sudden you just hear, and
right.
Like, are you okay? I'm like, oh, I'm fine. I'm good. So I got to be careful, or I have to hit part of the plate and part of the table, kind of slide down to the plate and on the table, and I have to be careful not to, because if I do, then all the food's just gonna go flying everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like anything on the stove, I just have to stop for a second and think, I have to chill for a minute, because if I stir this too crazy, it's just gonna end up everywhere. So a lot of time I'll just take a breather and be like, all right, I'm ready to do it. Let's do it. And of course, a little bit always ends up on the counter, which is fine. Just clean it up. But that's normal, But even down to sensory issues that people aren't really aware of. There are people out there with sensory issues as well. I myself don't like the hamburgers. I have to wear gloves to do it. I can't just
Oh,
get in
really?
there, and it freaks me out so bad. I don't like it. To me, it's just like the
Okay.
worst feeling in the world. And I just, I don't know. I just can't help it. I have to, if someone's here to help, I'm like, hey, can you do this real quick? Get all the
Right.
patties going, and I'll just throw them on the grill because I don't really want to get all in there like that. Don't feel good to me.
Yeah. And I guess also, like same with getting the haircut. A lot of my neck ticks and things like that. Again, I get premonitory urges. So if I feel something coming on and he's got the buzzer on my hair, I can tell him, it's like, hey, stop for a second. He stops. I get my ticks out of the way, and then we get right back into it. Or like again, like I hold off as long as I can. And, if he's now done with one part and moving to another and he's already pulled the clipper away, then I, really quickly get my ticks out of the way before he gets back into another part, and it's, again, it's just, you just kind of like learn to live with it. Those are things that I found out that work for me. And, I've talked to my barber and things like that. So he understands and he gets it, and we work well together.
Good on. I notice you have a lot of tattoos. A lot of people always ask, because I have a couple. I mean, you obviously have a lot more. People always ask, though, is it hard to get tattoos? It's like, well, no, you just got to communicate with the person doing it and let them know.
Yep.
If you need to
Exactly.
stop, you got to stop. There's no way around that unless you want, a botched line or whatever.
Yeah. And I don't know, like for me, I also feel, with my sleeve, the longer I'm into a session, it kind of seems like the calmer my ticks get, at least for that part of me. I don't know if it's just the buzzing and the vibrations from the tattoo gun that cause that, but it's just something that I've noticed is the longer I sit in my session, the calmer kind of my ticks get to a point, which I'm happy for, because that's less time having to tell him to stop so I can tick, and we just, keep hammering through it.
Right on. No, that's really cool. Yeah, like I said, you have a lot more tattoos than I do. So the few that I've gotten, just kind of zone out. And usually they have something going, like a TV, so you just kind of zone out into that,
Right?
And just relax. So that always works.
Mm-hmm.
How often do people actually approach you? Because you meet a lot of people on a daily basis. What percentage would you say actually approach you and ask questions?
Percentage? Oh, I have no idea. It's just, I would say daily I get people asking me like, hey, what's up with you? Or, I get a question about my ticks. It's just, it's to the point now where it's just, I've been doing this job for long enough and answering these questions. Like it doesn't faze me. It doesn't bother me. It's just now part of what I have to do.
Right.
So like, I really don't pay any mention to it, any mind to it, just because I'm aware and I understand that people are going to ask. So it's really no longer a big deal to me, so it's just kind of like part of the job type thing.
Right on. That's cool. So then you said earlier that it was hard for you to accept it at first.
Yep.
Would you maybe give us a little more on a detail on that? Like, what was that moment like when you accepted that hey, this is part of who I am, and it's not going away?
So I think it was kind of the culmination of everything. I was, for having like worked with all these people for a number of years, pretty much not ticking, to like all of a sudden being very ticky. So like just wondering if people were going to be accepting of it. So I'm just sitting here, I'm working myself up, with all this anxiety. And I think it was after that, after I talked to the deputies and told them, it's like, I got Tourette syndrome. Like, this is why I'm doing this. And just how accepting they were of it, and just that flood of relief that came over me. And I think that was a big push just for me to accept me, I guess you could say. It's just, this is something that I can't change. It's something that's part of me. And it just kind of, like, again, I keep saying this phrase, like, it is what it is. It's not affecting my life so negatively where, like, I'm in pain all the time, and I'm still able to do my job. I'm still able to do a lot of the things that I like to do before my tics came back severely. So it's just kind of wasn't accepting of it at all, just for how just like learning to live with it again, from my childhood, up into my 30s. It's just, I didn't live with it for so long, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, it's back, it's worse. So I think it just took time for me just to kind of fully accept it and kind of get used to it, and just realize what Tourette syndrome is, and then, like I said, like after talking with the deputies, and then just seeing how positive they were about it and accepting they were about it, and just realizing, like, why do I have to worry about that? Like, it's just, this is who I am. I think after that point, it just got easier and easier and easier to accept, to the point where it's just this is kind of where I'm at now.
Yeah. I guess, like, as an adult, you learn that, like, for the most part, not like everybody, I don't say like 100% of the people you meet, but a good percentage of the people that you meet genuinely just don't care. It's a non-issue to them, and it's like you said, you just spend so much time in your head thinking it's an issue that it affects your daily life, and in turn, it worsens your tics. But for the most part, most of the general public don't care.
Yep.
And if they don't care, then why should you? And for the little bit of people that do, like you said, it's just partially just because they don't know. It's something different than they are. And
Exactly.
sometimes people are scared of what's different from them, and I think that's where the part of awareness comes in, and saves the day, I guess you could say.
Right.
Was there ever a time where you were just ready to give up because of it?
Because of Tourette syndrome?
Yeah.
No. It's just, it took some time, like I said, just to get used to it, because again, it's just your routine and the way you used to do things are now no longer the way you do things.
Right.
Because now you gotta, for a lot of things, you kind of just gotta account for your tics and things like that. So I don't think there was never a point where I was ready to give up, but there was, again, just a process of just personal acceptance and getting used to your new routine and getting used to these new pains and noises and movements. That's what took a while. But in regards to just wanting to give up, that was never something that that crossed my mind at all.
Right on. That's awesome. How do you feel as a person who's overcome so much, even now as a police officer with Tourette's? How does that make you feel?
Like a normal person. I feel like we all have issues and things that we need to overcome, and some may seem minor to you but huge to other people, and vice versa. It's just that's kind of how I feel. That's kind of my whole thought process on it. It's just
so what advice do you have for others who struggle with mental health, Tourette's, and especially like our younger generation?
Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to seek help. It's just that's the biggest thing. Is if it's something that you're struggling with, don't do it like what I did and struggle silently with it. That's not advantageous to your mental health, and it's not going to allow you to grow and be able to, work through those issues at a good time. Ask for help, get your help. And in regards to Tourette syndrome and things like that, it's going to take time, and I understand that. But just accept it. It's part of who you are. It's not the whole part. You're going to tick. You're going to make noises. You're going to move around. Who cares? It's a part of you, and it's just what makes you you.
What do you hope to accomplish in your lifetime?
I saw this question when you sent me the questions for this, and I'm just like, just to continue being to continue doing well in my job, and just to continue to help inspire and give confidence to people that are maybe struggling with their TS. I have nothing hugely philosophical or anything like that, but just continue to, again, better myself and do well at work and just do well for other people.
Right on. So, how long have you actually been a police officer? I don't think we've actually gotten to that.
I'm coming on 10 or 11 years, somewhere around there.
Right on. That's
decade.
Cool. Nice. So many of us have hobbies, of course. What are some of the hobbies that you have that you feel have helped you through your struggle, or help you calm your tics?
Pretty much anything outdoors. I just love getting out in nature and just experiencing what it has to offer. I do a lot of snowmobiling, hunting, fishing, four-wheeling. Just pretty much if it's anything outdoors, I'm probably going to enjoy it. So I'm always open to finding new hobbies. And, one of the joys of, having ADHD is you have so many hobbies, but you just never finish any of them.
Right.
So I have a lot of half-started projects, and I'll get around to finishing them when I feel like it.
You should see my junkyard, I call it, of model cars that I was supposed to build. Do you have a favorite quote that you live by?
Well, I don't know if it's a quote or just a saying, and I've said it numerous times in this conversation, but it's just it is what it is. It may be helpful, and it may not be the best saying, but I just kind of look at a lot of things, and it's just it is what it is. Fix it, make it better, and move on.
Yeah, it's true. A lot of times, that's like you said, it is what it is. You can't really change it, so why not? Favorite food?
Pretty much most of it, except olives. Olives are disgusting. That's it. Just and the thing is, to be fair, every couple years I will try olives just to see maybe my palate has changed and olives are all of a sudden delicious. No, they're still disgusting, salty things. It's just black or green. No, they are both gross.
So what about pickles? Do you like pickles?
Love pickles.
So for the future Miss Tourette cop out there, you got to eat the black olives and not like pickles.
What's that?
I said for the future Miss Tourette cop out there, she has to like the black olives, green olives, and not pickles. So you eat the pickles and she'll eat the olives.
So I get all the pickles. See, that works.
That's a dream, right?
Exactly.
So do you have a favorite go-to meal though? I know a lot of guys, steak and potatoes is a thing that a lot of guys like.
Yeah. My go-to meal is just kind of just whatever I'm kind of having a craving for. Right now I'm kind of in the middle of having a meal plan and trying to gain weight for bodybuilding. So I get one cheat meal a week, and my cheat meal is generally very specific on what I'm craving or what I've been craving for the week.
Yeah.
So I mean, it changes weekly on what I get. Yeah, and sometimes it is just something as simple as just a big old steak with some potatoes and green beans and and things of the such. Or sometimes I'm just like, I'm gonna go to Burger King. I'm gonna do their 2 for $5 Whoppers. I'm gonna get some large fries. And just kind of go overboard
Right.
in that regards. But
variety is the spice of life. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Favorite workout?
I love all of them, but I'd have to say back is my most favorite. Couldn't tell you why. I think it's a lot of the exercises I just find just fun to do, I guess.
Right on. Well, favorite movie?
I don't have one. There's just too many.
They keep coming out.
And I really haven't. Yeah, and I haven't even sat down to watch an entire movie in I don't know how many years now.
Oh, wow.
I now just apparently just all of a sudden just don't have the attention span to sit through an entire movie. Like I'll start one with the intentions of watching the whole thing, but about 20 minutes in, it's like, oh hey, I gotta go do this, and then I'm off doing something else. Movie's still playing, like I'm still watching the movie, but I'm not actually watching the movie.
That's funny. I don't know how I've passed out countless of times at this point. I feel like my dad sometimes where, he'll sit and be like, let's watch a movie. I used to make fun of him so bad. Like, yeah, you mean you just wake up at the credits? Now it's like I'm doing that. I'm like, oh, like I feel so old now. I'm like, what's going on?
It's always fun, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you have a favorite song like of all time or at the moment or?
Nope. I just again, I love having that variety and and when you're in a squad car for hours at a time, you're listening to everything, and it could be mood depending or just like just you find a playlist that has a lot of good songs on it, you'll just start from the top and just work your way down.
Right on. So you're a police officer, but is that what you wanted to be when you were a kid, or when you were a kid did you want to be something else?
No, actually, as a kid, for as far back as I can remember, I think I've always wanted to be a police officer. And I couldn't pinpoint the exact time or the reason, but it's just something that I just remember. I've always been the type of kid that wanted to help people. I mean, even as I was a young kid, I always wanted to help people, and and even like in church and things like that, I was always volunteering for things and doing things to help people. And I just think that's just kind of just kind of coincides to law enforcement and just the want and the love of helping people. So that's probably why.
That's awesome. That's actually really cool. I feel like you don't get to meet many people that say I wanted to be that when I was a kid and ended up doing that. So I think that's actually really cool. So I know like we've talked, we've been talking for months. I know you said you are kind of a gearhead a little bit. So what is your favorite car?
There's so many cars out there, and again, like it honestly depends like the mood I'm in. Sometimes I'll like those. Like car I have is a Ford Focus ST, a little hot hatch 6-speed, and fun car. But then others it's like like the Challenger Hellcat would be so much fun to have.
Right.
There's so many cars out there that I would love to own and probably never will. It's hard to pinpoint like one like dream car, because there's so many that I would love to own and love to drive and wrap around a tree and things like that.
Right. Do you have a favorite sport? I know you do bodybuilding, and yes, to everybody out there, that is considered a sport. But aside from that, do you have a favorite sport that you like?
Not really. I was never into watching sports growing up, and even now, I mean, the thought of sitting through a football game, it just seems painful to me. I know that's like sacrilegious to a lot of people, but
right.
I can't do it. So I don't. I have no idea what's going on in the football world or baseball or basketball or anything like that. I just a lot of times like I would prefer playing those sports than watching them is the biggest thing.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I don't watch football either or basketball. or baseball.
Right.
I'm sorry, I just don't. That's just I'd rather watch somebody jump on a motorcycle and you know take some laps on a track. Those kind of sports is what I
Oh, right,
go
right.
watching.
Yep.
You know, do you like any board games or cards? Like any favorite board games or card games that you like to play?
So I remember as a kid, and I haven't played a board game in a long time, but I remember as a kid we'd have like 2-3 day long like Monopoly games, where just like
Intense.
we'd play for so long and then we'd like leave for a while and then like the next day we'd come back and play again for a while and like all the old classic games that we grew up with are fun for me.
Yeah.
Like Monopoly, Life, and then now actually having a niece and nephew and everything, I can play all those old games without feeling too weird about it.
Yeah.
It's like Shoots and Ladders, Candyland.
Yeah. Kids always get me to play Candyland with them. We did Monopoly once, but my son started stealing from the bank.
That'll happen.
So who was your childhood hero, and are they still your hero today?
I never really had one particular person that was a hero of mine. I looked up to a lot of people, for the things that they did. So I just never just pinpoint like one person. Always looked up to my dad. He was, he gave me the work ethic that I have now, and and showed me a lot of things to, just for fixing, growing up. So you could say I'm a jack of all trades, but a master at none. Again, due to my dad just showing me all these things, that you can work on and do and then fix for yourself and things like that. So I have my father to thank for that. And then you just, then there's just, other people in your life that come along that do things and, you look up to them for that, so I just, again, I guess you could say like one person I look up to and still do to this point is my dad, just for all the things that he has done for me and all that. But, there's countless many more, that are out there as well.
Right on. It's a good answer though. What should we expect from you this year, as far as Tourette's community and awareness?
Well, I'm hoping to actually put out more videos this year. I know last year was a pretty terrible year for a lot of people, and I was pretty lazy last year. So this year I do want to put out, just more videos, just, talking about my experiences and just bringing more education and awareness to Tourette syndrome and things like that.
Right on. Thank you very much for, opening up to us, giving us some life experiences, some how you stories on how you've overcome. Just letting us know you a little bit more. There are other interviews out there that he has done as well, so you guys can also go check those out. Make sure you go ahead and follow him at Tourette Cop on Instagram. I'll go ahead and link that down in the description, so you guys can go ahead and follow his journey. And again, I just thank you very much for hanging out with us here for a little bit. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you thinking of me and having me on. It was a lot of fun, and we'll have to do this again sometime.
Most definitely. All right. Well, thank you much, everybody, for watching. Make sure you hit that like. If you're not a subscriber, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Make sure that you hit that notification bell. Hit all so you don't miss out on any future ones, because this is not just going to be the only episode. I will have more episodes out to come. So thank you guys, and you guys have a good night.